Every time I tried to make it on my own, every time I tried to stand and start to fall, all those lonely roads that I have traveled on, there was Jesus. When the life I built came crashing to the ground, when the friends I had were nowhere to be found, I couldn't see it then, but I can see it now. There was Jesus. In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment, where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know it, I couldn't see it, there was Jesus. For this man who needs amazing kind of grace, forgiveness at a price I couldn't pay. I'm not perfect, so I thank God every day. There was Jesus. There was Jesus. In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment, where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know it, I couldn't see it. There was Jesus on the mountains and the valleys. There was Jesus in the shadows of the alleys. In the fire and the flood. Always is and always was. No, I never walked alone. Never walked alone. In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment, where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know it, I couldn't see it, there was Jesus. There was Jesus. There was Jesus. There was Jesus.
We're going to jump to the ninth chapter of 1 Corinthians and talk about a familiar verse, running the race. I'm going to look at the end of chapter 9 and part of chapter 10 here this morning and be reminded that we're in a process of sanctification, but we need to take a part in that and take that seriously and be attempting to honor and glorify God with our lives. Not how we approach the Christian faith or the walk. We run as though we may not even have to complete. That we're in the faith and that is truly a part. Competition is running a lot of races. They do it in such a way with a purpose as to win. And he tells us that if you're really trying to win the race, then you're tempered in all things, he says. There's a difference when you're in training, right? If a person is serious about a competition and they're in training, They're going to spend time in whatever sport it is, fight that is harder, that's a higher elevation. It's harder to breathe. It's harder for them being involved in some kind of athletics. And have you ever noticed somebody who, as long as the coach is looking, they're running, and then as soon as he's not, or they're having to run a long ways, as soon as we turn that one corner where we can't be seen, now I'm walking. I see some smiles because some of you have seen that. You've even done that, I'm sure. Who gets hurt in that? You do. You're the one who is hurting your own development and preparation. And if you're on a team sport, you're hurting the team. But how often do we do the same thing with our faith? I thought of that illustration thinking about training and running and getting ready for a race, and I mean, it hit me hard that I can be that way in my faith. If everybody's looking, well, I mean, striving, digging, nobody's looking. Okay, we can take a break now. I mean, rest a minute, walk it off for a little bit. Do that so long, and when it comes time for the actual competition, you don't have the energy. You're not in good enough shape. You can't handle it. Heck, I was scared to play kickball with them this weekend. I'm in such bad shape right now, I thought I'll never survive. We can be that way in our faith when it really comes to competing, when it really comes to we're facing the enemy, we're not up to it. Why? Because we haven't been temperate in all things. We haven't been focused on our walk. We haven't been focused on our training. We've been taking shortcuts. We've been ignoring it. We've been eating things we shouldn't eat. Not doing the things that we should do to exercise. And so when it comes time for the competition, we're not there. Paul says at the last of this, he says, therefore I run thus, not with uncertainty, and thus I fight not as one who beats the air. I'm running in such a way that I'm sure that I can place, and I'm serious about this competition. And he says, I fight not as one that beats the air. Paul says, I'm not shadow boxing at this point. At Paul's point in his life where he's trying to do ministry, he says, look, I'm not shadow boxing. I'm not just working a speed bag. I'm in a fight. So the competition is going on. I'm taking on the devil, and I'm taking on sin, and I'm taking on the things of the faith, and there's a fight going on here. And a lot of times we're not even in the fight, and we forget that it's even going on. We should be engaged in the fight. Because Paul tells us in another epistle that be disciplined. And I have to discipline my actions because I don't want to be disqualified and because the competition's already taken place. Training's over. He says he's in the race. He's in the fight at this time. He brings to mind after this to them the lessons that we should know from the Old Testament about how serious this is as far as being disqualified, as far as not making it to the goal and the prize that we set. And before we read this, it's going to back up to Moses and the children of Israel, and they're seeking the promised land. And often in this section, a lot of people read it and they think it's about you can lose your salvation. Even in this case, Moses himself did not make it into the promised land, correct? He got all the way there. He got to see it. He did not get to cross over into it. Do you think Moses wasn't saved? That's not what Paul's saying here. But he is reminding us how we can fall short of the goals that we have in our life and for Christ and in the church and in ministry. In the cloud and in the sea, all ate the same spiritual food, all drank the same spiritual drink.